He was the second known American killed while fighting for ISIS in Syria, and he was from right here in Minnesota.
But Fox 9 has learned his employment history while he lived here is raising a few eyebrows. Tom Lydon's here with the exclusive. Tom, downright scary.
Yeah, guys, it may be the last place you would want a terrorist to work, the airport. Before he died fighting for ISIS, Abdurrahman Mohammed may have cleaned your plane at Twin Cities International. It's the kind of employment history that certainly would have stuck out on his terror resume. When he was killed in Syria fighting for ISIS, Abdurrahman Mohammed left behind a trail of selfies and a trail of mystery. Who recruited him to join the terror group? And how did he support himself and 9 children? Multiple sources tell Fox 9 that for a time, he worked at Twin Cities International cleaning planes. A job that gave him security clearance, access to the tarmac, and for periods of time, unfettered access to the planes as well. 2 former employees confirm his employment with DGS, Delta Global Services, a wholly owned subsidiary of Delta Airlines. Earlier this year, the cleaning contract was taken over by another company, AirServe. It's the Metropolitan Airports Commission that issues the security clearance to get on the runway tarmac. On Friday, a spokesperson said they can't comment on any kind of FBI investigation. Today, a MAC spokesperson told me they are checking with the Department of Homeland Security to see if they can say anything about Abdurrahman Mohammed's security clearance here at the airport. It's unknown how long Abdurrahman Mohammed worked at DGS or when exactly he left the Twin Cities to fight with ISIS. He was killed in the same battle as Douglas McCain, who is also from Minnesota. As many as 15 men and 1 woman are believed to have left the Twin Cities to fight for ISIS, the terror group making no secret of the propaganda value it gets from foreign fighters, who figure prominently in its social media accounts. Last month, ISIS even posted pictures of its flag in front of the White House and Chicago's Old Republic building, along with this haunting statement: "We are in your state. We are in your cities. We are in your streets." The question for investigators now is whether they're working at our airports as well. And it's important to point out that Abdurrahman Mohammed didn't have any criminal history we could find, nothing that would appear to keep him from getting a job at the airport, although we hear he may have had aliases. There are different levels of security clearance at the airport, and we don't know exactly what level he had. We contacted Delta and Delta Global Services directly last week and again today, and they are checking with their Human Resources Department to see what information, if any, they can release. Guys, back to you.
Disturbing and maybe even terrifying new information about one of the Americans who went to Syria to fight for ISIS and got killed in battle. Turns out, before he left to join ISIS in Syria, he worked at Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport. Now, KMSP reporter Tom Lydon broke that story. He joins us with the very latest. Tom, thank you for joining us. And can you tell me, who is this man? Where did he work?
You know, all great questions, Greta. Late this afternoon, the airport confirmed our reporting from last night and also filled in the details of that work history you're talking about. And some of the items on the resume, quite frankly, are going to cause real concern. The airport knew Abdurrahman Mohammed by his real name, Abdelfattah Ahmed. Law enforcement sources confirming we are talking about the same man who died fighting for ISIS. He worked at the airport for a decade between November 2001 and May 2011 and had access to the tarmac and planes. For most of that time, he worked fueling up the planes themselves. Most recently, though, 2010-2011, he worked cleaning planes. Part of that job also was securing the planes, and that was for Delta Global Services, which is owned by Delta Airlines. For both jobs, he held a security clearance that is known as SITA, for Secure Identification Display Area. You need an FBI background check to get that clearance, but it allows you to skip the metal detectors to get right onto the airport tarmac, and the checkpoints really involve a fairly cursory inspection of the vehicles going through. Now, we don't know under what circumstances he left his job in May of 2011. The airport says it doesn't know, and Delta won't comment except to say it's aware of our reporting and is working with local law enforcement. But, Greta, I can tell you to some extent, the chronology is going to come as a relief to law enforcement because it appears from his social media accounts he was really radicalized later than 2011 after he left the airport. It was around 2013 that his social media accounts sort of shifted from talking about women and dating. He was apparently a bit of a player with 4 wives, 9 kids, to talking about fighting and dying for Allah. It was last year that made that shift.
Tom, maybe the FBI feels a whole lot better about that, but I don't. I don't feel a whole lot better about the fact someone get an FBI check, works on the tarmac. It's a reporter who exposes it. We didn't hear this from the FBI. We didn't hear this from Delta. We didn't hear this from the Minneapolis Airport. We got it from you. So, the fact that he's changed what his content of his social media doesn't make me feel a whole lot better. But I do want to know is that do we know how he got into ISIS?
No, that is still the mystery about what the recruiting level is on the ground. Obviously, I was reporting back in 2007, we broke the story about the 20 Minnesota Somalis who left to go fight for al-Shabaab. We believe that had a whole different recruiting apparatus than what we're talking about today. There were indictments for that case. We don't know exactly how the recruiting was going down. If it was people on the ground here recruiting, or if it was done mostly through social media and the internet. And Greta, you mentioned not feeling so great about this, that we didn't know that. I'll throw one other wrinkle. We didn't know about this alias until literally 2 hours ago. And with the Somali community here in Minneapolis and Minnesota, it's always a bit difficult because many of them come to this country not knowing their exact date of birth. And in fact, their date of birth lists 1172, January 1st, 1972, because they don't know their birth date. And also many of these clan names are very, very similar. And we've done stories where you can have two people in the jail, two different individuals, same name, same date of birth. It gets very, very confusing, and it appears to be confusing in this case as well.
But, Tom, the American people, a big thanks to you for breaking this story, because chances are they're going to look a lot closer at a lot of people tonight. At least I hope they do. If this story hadn't been broken, we'd all just be getting our boarding passes and maybe locking our seats so the person in front of us couldn't recline. Who knows? Anyway, Tom, thank you.
Sure.